So how long should your book be? A lot of first-time authors that are looking into self-publishing ask themselves this question because they see some books that are long and some books that are short, or maybe they've heard that your book has to be 240 pages for it to be considered a real book, or some people think, no, it's got to be really short because that's all people will read. So what is the answer? I want to show you some specific examples, one of the books that I wrote and how long it is, and then I want to show you two examples of two very different books in terms of length, but both of them have been very successful. And that will help us answer this question. If you're new to my channel, my name's Lane. This is the place where I help online entrepreneurs and aspiring self-publishing authors to make an impact on the world by spreading their message and make a great income doing it. So if you're new to my channel, be sure to click subscribe and give this video a like. So how long should your book be? My first book was called Preaching Killer Sermons. It was for my other YouTube channel and that audience called Preaching Donkey. And this book is 190 pages. So this book is just shy of a 240 back standard traditionally published book. An example of that would be this book, Atomic Habits. This book is right at about 250 pages plus the appendicitis. Anyway, whatever it is, it's 250 pages. And if you can see, it is a #1 New York Times bestseller. So you might say, well, if this is 250 pages, then that's probably how long a book should be because it's a #1 bestseller on New York Times. Well, my book is 190 pages and it was also a bestseller in its category on Amazon. Not #1 on New York Times, although that would have been awesome, but I've got a much smaller niche of people. The target audience for this book is much smaller than this. But either way, it was a #1 bestseller in its category on Amazon and continues to sell well, and it's a very quick read compared to this one. It's about 60 pages smaller. However, this book, called The Richest Man in Babylon, is a massively popular book. Over 4 million copies sold, which if you're in the world of books, you know that for any book to reach 1 million copies, 200,000 copies, 2 million copies is a big deal. But 4 million copies sold is a massive, massive success. This is a classic book and it sold like crazy, and it is very thin. This particular printing has 88 pages, which is not very long for a book, and yet it's packed with intense value. So here you have it, where you have two examples of two books that are incredibly vast in their differences, and yet both of them have been very successful, and then my book in the middle where it's also been successful. So the question isn't how many words does your book need to be, or how many pages does your book need to be? That's not really what's most important. What's most important is, does the content of your book take your reader from A to Z? I like to think about my books in terms of escape and arrival. What am I helping my reader escape from? And then what am I helping them arrive to? So in this book, Preaching Killer Sermons, for example, I'm helping them escape from mediocrity in their preaching, from dull, boring, ineffective communication where they don't feel confident when they get up to preach. That's what I want them to escape. And I want them to arrive at a sense of confidence, a solid system, and a solid plan for preparing and delivering messages. So all along the way between escaping and arriving, there are milestones that they have to hit, right? And those become my chapters. And then within that, there's milestones that they have to hit within that, and that becomes my sections, and you get the idea. So to me, when I sit down to write a book, I am not concerned about how many pages it's going to end up being or how many words it's going to end up being. I want to know the journey that I'm taking people on. So for The Richest Man in Babylon, in 88 pages, George S. Clason was able to take people on a journey of learning personal finance. In 253 pages, James Clear was able to take his readers on an amazing journey of learning personal habits and breaking bad ones. And again, in my book, I was able to take people on the journey that I wanted to take them on in 190 pages. So it's really about the value that you offer. And a book could be 25 pages, but an incredible value, or it could be 300 pages and a bunch of waste and fluff. So it's not about the length, but I would say if you're looking at, okay, well, what is a good minimum? What is a good minimum for me to shoot for? I would say that given everything that I've said, and it's all true, but if you just want your book to be able to stand out and have perceived value, you need around a minimum of 100 pages. Here's why I say that. And you might be saying, well, wait, aren't you contradicting everything you just said? No, because to sell books, you have to have perceived value, right? People have to look through it and go, there's something here. Your book might be incredibly valuable at 20 pages, but people still will look at it and go, well, it's only 20 pages. Why am I going to pay for that? So you want to try to get to that 100-page range. But then from there, I don't think it's a matter of the longer it is, the more perceived value. That's not true anymore. These days, a lot of people are thinking about how much time they have, how much time they don't have, how long and arduous a book is going to be, and what commitment it's going to take out of them. So if they look at a 100-page book, they're thinking, I can tackle this book. This book is going to be something that I can get my hands on and I can read it. If they're looking at a 600-page book, that's a much deeper commitment. So your perceived value goes up, right? When it's about 100, 120 pages, 150 pages, 190, and it starts to go down as people start to feel intimidated and overwhelmed. Now, this does depend on the genre. If you're writing fiction, people like to get lost in the book and they might read 700 pages, like the Harry Potter series, right? You got thousands and thousands of pages in that series and people read it gladly. So I'm talking mostly about nonfiction, where people are going to want to get the information, get the help they need, learn the in-depth principles that you're teaching them in that book, and then go put them to use. In that case, I would say a minimum of about 100 pages to shoot for, but don't go much further than that if you don't need to. And if you find yourself just adding words and chapters to get to 100 pages, then that's bad news too, okay? I'd much rather you put out a 60-page book that is packed with value and price it accordingly than a 100-page book just because you feel like you have to get to that minimum. So again, these are principles that I have found to be the most helpful with the clients that I've worked with in my coaching with self-publishing and in just my experience as an author and as an avid reader. So I'd love to hear your experience in the comments. Think about the last book that you read, and if you can remember, put down in the comments below how many pages that book was and if you finished reading it. At this point, you might be wanting more help with writing your book in general, formatting it, cover design, editing, all of that. For that, I have this playlist for you right here. Just click on that and I'll see you in that playlist, and we'll get into all of that in there. So just click right there and I'll see you in that playlist.